We're going into an education conversation this hour. There are many things that are happening. The school term, the last term of this year started yesterday, but according to the Ministry of Education calendar, 25th of August going into 26th and 27th is when schools open for the final term, the shortest term of the year. Joining us in the hot seat this morning to discuss learning in transition is Olive Mbuthia, who is a former Deputy Director of the Kenya Institute of Curriculum Development, and she's also an education consultant. She joins us this morning. Good morning, Olive.
Good morning.
How are you doing?
I'm doing fine.
Karibu sana.
Yeah.
Welcome from all the way from Nyeri.
Yes.
You've come in for this conversation. Thank you for doing that today.
Yes. I just gone to my farm and they called me and I said, fine, I'll come.
Fantastic. Yes. We're glad that you did. We're going to start off this conversation as you're in the hot seat of the Situation Room. Dennis is going to share today's proverb. Okay. We would like to hear your interpretation of it.
Okay. Yeah. Today we are in Seychelles. The people of Seychelles are known as Seychellois. They speak English, they speak French, and the Creole as well. So it is a country that got its independence on June 29th, 1976. The economy is pushed mainly through fishing and tourism, because it is an island country and tourism does very well in that country. Now, our proverb today: don't overdo things, everyone breaks eventually. Don't overdo things, everyone breaks eventually. How would you interpret that?
Yes, I think sometimes maybe you go on overdrive, and yet there are so many people who can help you. So I think you need to share out what needs to be done, so that you can you don't break yourself, break your health, and so that we can continue. Yes.
Different way of looking at it. Sharing it out so that you spread the burden.
Yes, spread the burden.
Indeed. Well, if we look at spreading the burden, definitely then getting into an education conversation, we will have the conversation. As uncomfortable as it is, let's talk about it. And to ask for an education in transition. And you sat in as a Deputy Director at the KICD.
Yes.
And so our questions then swirling around development of a curriculum and the implementation of the same. So this year is a unique one in this curriculum. And it's the first time that we're going to see grade 9s sit the KGSEA. It is the third year of the KPSEA exams and the third year also of the grade 3 exams. It's another SEA. And the second to last year of the KCSE exams. 2027 will be the final year for KCSE. And we see that transition of the new curriculum has been full, or it has been complete, quote unquote. However, as we look at some of these issues, there are many things that are parts of this moving vehicle which are not moving, unfortunately. Yes. So we want to get a perspective and an understanding of how, when this curriculum is developed, how then are the metrics for implementation also then developed and seen through. And we can be very honest about this morning, that things are not good.
Yeah.
Things don't look like they are going to flow properly.
Quite right.
Give us an overview of what you see the situation to be.
Of course, now I'm a senior citizen, but I used to work at KICD. I worked there for quite a long time, and I think I'm I can call myself one of the architects of the CBC. And we had a very good vision and mission. But of course, when you start anything, you of course expect support. So we developed CBC, and we were saying we need to carry along all the learners. We believed there is no stupid child. All children have a potential. They have talents, they have gifts. And I think the role of the school is not to push them out. I think we call them push-outs. We don't push them out. We identify what it is that they can do and support that. Because I think all those different talents are needed in in this world. So we felt we could do that. And I think it took us some years to really concretize CBC. And we did concretize, and we were very happy. And I think at the point when we were working, we got a lot of support. Let me say the government in place at that time gave us a lot of support. They allowed us to think as Kenyans. They didn't let anyone interfere in the process. We drew the program and we thought it would work. But like you say, somewhere, and maybe I'm even glad to be home now. I'm glad to be home because what I'm seeing is not what we dreamt.
What are you seeing?
I'm seeing children now who will be broken, parents who are not supported. I think one of the things that we said is that CBC cannot work without parent support. So we needed to engage them, empower them, because all parents are not literate, they didn't go through school. So we felt there must be a program to support, but I think that now has gone off. We felt teachers needed to be supported because they learned at their own time, their own years, and we felt, of course, if you're in service anywhere, I think things change. Even in medical, we didn't have COVID, and one point we got COVID. Some people had to sit and look at COVID and see how it is going to, how we can deal with a virus like that. And of course, people gave it all, funds were given, and I think we came through COVID. The same even with education. It needs support. And so we were hoping that the government would support the parents, make sure they are engaged, even if they are not into academics. I think they need to be told what is happening and where they need to support. They need, through that, they also get a little empowered. Then they can support, because you can't leave children to the teacher alone. You need the support of the parents. So we felt that should happen. And then the next thing we thought is that the government needed a lot of resources, because we were talking about parents. We are not talking of pushing children through certain subjects. Is that we open all these subjects so that they are able to find themselves. We wanted children to find themselves in the curriculum. Say, I think I can do maths and do Kiswahili. Nobody should force me now to do maths and do another subject that I don't like. So you support them. You don't deny them the opportunity. And so we felt, and that's why we were saying even at grade 6, we should not have exams. Because what we needed was something that tells us about every child.
An assessment.
An assessment, okay. Yes, great. An assessment that tells us this child is good at this and this is good. And as a parent, I've gone through that. And I think it helped me just to look at my son and see how he develops and support him on that, rather than push him into things that maybe as parents we dream of, we want to. So we felt that CBC needed a lot of support, and at the time we were doing it, we were helped. Finances, I think even a whole department was set up by the president, State Department of Curriculum Reforms, to make sure that even as it is progressing, people know what is happening. But then at one point, everything fell apart. That department was dissolved.
At what point was it dissolved? What happened?
I can't remember. Exactly the date, but it was dissolved, and of course with the new government, new structures. And I think when I looked at it, I saw I think education was not taking center stage. Yet education is what gives you manpower. It's what develops a country. But now you're not an enemy, should I say? Is it the only problem? Education. So we felt it should, but it's not. To my thinking, this is my own thinking, I'm not going to put it on anyone, is that things are not going right. And we are going to lose children. We are going to lose parents, because most teachers now are more engaged in, I want to finish the curriculum, I want my salary at the end of the year, I have also to survive other things happening in the country. So you can imagine somebody like that, who else can they help?
Olive, you see, when you talk about matters to do with education in the country, and you talk about CBC at the onset, you say from the word go,
Yes.
there was support from the government.
Yes.
There are bodies that were helped to support the putting up of CBC.
Yes.
But then again, if you go back and you just speak to parents, there are parents who say, in terms of participation, public participation, it did not happen to a level where they could say it was meaningful public participation, that you were part and parcel of the process. However, the implementation started. Here we are now. A little bit later, another body is formed, the Presidential Working Party, that comes with its own ideas and its own implementation matrix. And at the departure from the first instance under President Uhuru's government and the new government at that point, how big was the disconnect in terms of confusing the implementation of CBC or CBE?
Yes, I think at one point, now politics took over, its new structures, who gets what position. So I think somehow education lost it. Because I think when the previous government was setting up a department, it wanted a department that would be talking to the stakeholders, finding out what is the problem and supporting. So we lost the parents because now it became, parents come to school, they are told what needs to be done. That's not what we were thinking. We were thinking they come here, we discuss. We have the time to even discuss each child. Oh, your child is like this. Would you support us with this? But I don't think that's the way it's going. In fact, I think now the burden has gone on parents. The engagement and empowerment is to buy resources and look for resources. And sometimes you even hear things that I think were not envisioned in CBC, that parents are doing assignments.
I'm sorry, Olive, allow me to understand something.
Yes.
So what you are saying to us essentially is that the way it was designed as a curriculum,
Yes.
when you were there as a deputy director at the KICD, this curriculum was designed to have a fulcrum of support for the learner.
Yes.
From the teachers and from the parents. So it was supposed to go forward, removing the exam mentality from the minds and have a wholesome learning as opposed to cramming for exams. Right? That's what you said.
Correct.
But the exact opposite has happened. Because even this, look at what happened now. Grade 3, grade 6, grade 9, and then again at grade 12, what we're calling an assessment is still an exam.
Yes.
It is still an exam where people are still calling grade 6 as candidates. They're calling grade 3 as candidates. They are now calling grade 9 as candidates because they're about to sit a big exam in November that will see where they will be placed in senior secondary school. What has the difference been? Number 2, who was to ensure, we are Katiba at 15, who was to ensure that the implementation of this new curriculum was to go according to the designers of the curriculum? Who did that? This department that was now miraculously
closed. I think the department was the minister, so the cabinet secretary in charge of education. And I think I remember interacting even with the late Magoha, and I remember we were having discussions about grade 6, and we were saying we don't want any exam at grade 6. And he made us sit for several sessions to make him understand, because he was telling us, okay, you are talking of having no exams, but I am also at a loss. What do I tell the politicians who want to see that their child has moved from a school, I don't know, he kept talking about a Kanyenyaine school to Alliance. And we were telling him, we are even rethinking Alliance and the national schools. Because I think we can have many national schools, not just Alliance. Because the national schools now will be built according to the different talents. Some could be in sports, some could be in science, some could be, and they can be anywhere in this country.
Okay.
So it doesn't have to be in Alliance and Gandu and all that. So we were even telling him that. But of course now he kept telling us, you see, now you have to tell me what to tell the politicians. How will their child not move from Kanyenyaine to Alliance?
Whose curriculum was this?
I thought the curriculum is for the learners.
who designed this curriculum?
We designed as KICD because that was the mandate of KICD.
Was it based on an idea that came from outside the country?
Actually, no. This is something we gathered information from parents. I was in KICD even before when it was KIE, and we collect lots of data from parents, even on small issues in education, in subject-wise and things like that. So we had collected a lot of data and we had put it in reports. And I think if you go to KICD, you'll get those reports and you'll see what parents told us and other stakeholders. And this was something we looked at what we were told by our people. And we were thinking now with SDG 4, which was telling us about inclusivity and equity and all those things about education, then we need to make education accessible to all. And exams, exams like the KCPE, we go, we celebrate, but there are some children who are crying. Not that they are stupid, but maybe they are not gifted in the subjects that we have crafted for them. Okay? So I think that's what we were looking at, that we don't lose any child.
But then how do you fail so badly on an idea that was born here?
Because
is it possible that I come up with something and I say, this is how I want it to look?
Yes.
And then I have all the metrics for implementation, but I fail on the implementation. Even the very design of the thing looks as though it had to have imported from outside, and it had to have been designed to fail from the beginning. Because look at what we are seeing here. The pioneer class of this curriculum are the grade 9ers today. They have had you would think that they say teething problems.
Yes.
At some point, the teeth grow, Olive. But these poor kids have had teething problems ever since they were in grade 3. Now they're in grade 9. They're about to sit an exam at the end of the year to go to grade 10, where they're supposed to select pathways for which we don't have science teachers in the country. That's what we're talking about.
Yes.
That we should have 100% science teachers. We're going into STEMs as one of the pathways. We only have 37% complete science teachers in public schools. And one of the pathways is STEM, on a curriculum designed at KICD. So you can imagine where my question is coming.
I think that's why a department was created, because from what was drawn, it was realized this thing needed a lot of resources. And I think part of the work that we did when I was there was collect data on schools, despite even going to look for data and finding that there were ghost schools and things like that. So we needed data. And let me tell you, I don't think anything can, let's say, for example, if COVID came and the government didn't support, well, I don't think we would have gone anywhere. It's the same with education. If there is no support, resources, people who understand, sometimes also the government makes major bladders. Like now, when you see, like us, we had the vision. Yeah. But you bring people on board who don't have that vision and they are your bosses. What do you think will happen?
You stop the vision. I'm sorry, Olive.
Yes.
But when you...
Then
and that's why... I'm sorry.
Yes.
But that's why when we talk about the design of this curriculum, it's you draw it. What did you say, Nakuchorea? What did you say in the morning?
Nakuchorea.
Yes. You have a plan. And you know that this is a resource-heavy curriculum.
Yes.
And that you can see, okay, these guys... in the beginning, even before anything happened, there can be, that's why you have guinea pigs.
Yes.
You try the thing out, it doesn't work, you can decide to go ahead with it or you leave it alone. This is a resource heavy curriculum.
Yes.
Whereby at the time where this curriculum was being established, there was still money owed on capitation.
Yes.
What did that say? That there was already a resource problem, and then we are bringing in a resource heavy curriculum. How did we expect that it was going to happen? So my question is, why did we go ahead with it? And that gives rise to the suspicion that it was not a Kenyan-born curriculum.
I think the feeling that it was not Kenyan, that is for, I think I would leave it to the ones who feel, because I was in the center of it and I know it's Kenyan. And resources, you see, countries can get resources. You get support even from other countries. You get resources from well-wishers. This country, I believe Kenya is a very rich country. Very rich. It's only that we squander the money. Even when we drew it and saw the kind of resources that were there, we felt this country can do it if they value education. Just the same way they did with COVID. You can remember when COVID came, we didn't even know where to start. We thought people were dying in Italy where they are very developed. So we were thinking now we'll die in millions.
We'll die like flies.
We will die like flies. But we didn't die because there was somebody there who decided to carry us along, tell us what to do the hygiene measures, You remember how we went through it? So we would get a talk, would be told, do this, do your masks, wash your hands. That sometimes education just requires that. It's not resources in terms of money. What support can you give? For example, we were there, supporting parents, going out. Many times I went out to do work. What is the problem of me being facilitated to go and sit with parents and make them understand? A lot of the resources even were things we could even, when we designed the curriculum, we didn't design that we have to look for materials outside the country. There were things that we could source even locally. We thought about that because we know our country is not well endowed. There are some very poor countries, there are some legions, but we felt we could source. For example, we would say even old newspapers can still be teaching and learning materials, isn't it? Rather than buying new things. So I think this country, I really want to believe this country is very rich, could afford CBC. It's just the direction that took,
allow me to be like a dog with a bone on this particular issue.
Correct.
So when we're talking about a curriculum, for example, and this is a thing that was affecting a lot of people, whereby you have something, and these are pictures that went around the country at the time, at the development of a curriculum, and we see that swimming, teaching children how to swim was part of the curriculum, knowing full well that less than 3% of the schools in the country have access to swimming pools.
Yes.
Knowing this is just an example. How was this now supposed to be implemented in schools as part of the curriculum for which people were supposed to pass an assessment?
Let me own up to something. Nobody is perfect in this world. Even a designer can make, I think even with technology, we get cars, sometimes you're told something has happened and they have to go back to they withdraw the cars, isn't it? Okay, we were not saying we were perfect. I remember that issue that you're talking about, swimming. You see, we relied on the curriculum expert in charge of PE. And I remember myself asking her, since I can't design PE for her because I'm not PE. And I remember asking her, now, if you insist PE swimming is compulsory, do you know of the schools that don't have? Somehow she insisted, but we said, okay, in curriculum, there are things we keep correcting as the curriculum went on. And it was corrected. Yes, it was made option. Yeah, so there are things you learn as you do something, and that they shouldn't stop you from doing whatever you are doing, even when you're in agriculture. You plant a certain maize seed and you find it's not doing well in your area. So what do? You start now sourcing for another, whatever. So even in curriculum, it's not that everything that has been set is set on stone and cannot change. And these are things you keep learning as a curriculum developer. You keep changing. And you are allowed. I remember, even in the previous curriculum, there was one subject which was called social studies. That went out to school and they found they couldn't complete the syllabus. And we came back and sat and redesigned it. You see? So things can be corrected at some point. We are not saying we were perfect, but we were saying the vision we had was quite good. We felt if it had the support, and I think even when we looked at that department, the curriculum department that was set up was now looking at the resources. Where does the government need to come in and assist? And they started doing correcting data on number of schools, number of things that are required in schools. And I think it's that department that would have been charged with supporting and making sure that if there are any challenges with that curriculum, they are rectified at the point. Nothing is perfect. I wouldn't want to claim that you design something and it is perfect.
You see, Olive, as that question is being asked, there's that question that the late Professor Magoha was asking you, how do I speak of a school from Kanyanyaine going to Alliance High School?
Yes.
And one would have hoped that at the time when CBC was being structured and coming up, that resources would have been put in place to ensure that perhaps even in those schools where they do not have a swimming pool, the government would have put resources to ensure that there are one or two swimming pools that all the schools would do what would share to ensure that a school in Nairobi or a school in Turkana has the same facilities that a school in Nairobi has. But here is a situation where if you look at what happened mostly during CBC is we went back to our traditional ways of more classes, rightfully so, because we want more students, but we never thought about other infrastructural developments that would feed into this new curriculum that we are putting in place, which then still takes us back to where we started.
Yes,
the political goodwill in pushing this CBC. Was it there from the word go? It is why people are saying this was introduced by us, by other people who just want to see our education structure grant to a halt. Was there a political goodwill from the word?
When it started, there was a lot of it. I can tell you, I felt it. But somewhere along the way, now education was not the focus, it was other things. And I think that when it changed, in fact, I was glad that I was going home, because I felt now this we are not going to achieve, and it's going to be very sad. And even when I sit at home today, I weep over it.
Where you sit, if you look at the curriculum today, because as you sit, how is it from your eyes? Is it that bad?
I did my postgraduate I did in Australia, and I can tell you, even as we were doing, we knew curriculum is a resource intense anywhere. Not just in Kenya, anywhere. If you're going to change a curriculum anywhere in the country, that country must be ready. I remember even the 844 you're talking about, we were supported by World Bank. And I can tell you, they gave us the money, but now the problem was we started seeing they wanted us to do things. And I remember we as the Kenyans refused, told them no. Yes, you're giving us the funds, but I don't think you should be interfering with what we designed for our countries. I know people say it's foreign because, of course, when you're doing curriculum, you don't only look at your country. Your children are not going to sit in your own country and never go anywhere else. So you prepare them also to be able to, if they move to any country, that they can fit in. So I think we also looked at what other countries were doing. And of course, what other people have learned, the educationists have learned about education. So we could have some influence that's a bit foreign, but not necessarily that it was forced in. It was, we looked at it, yes, it can fit. Okay? For example, you might want to look at the structure. You don't want to do a structure that your child cannot fit in another country. You see? Or you'll have to think about, do they need to bridge? Do they need to do this? So we compared that. But basically we relied on the African countries, maybe learned from Western countries on how they did it. But I think mainly it was our doing. It's the political goodwill is very important. It can undo even the best thing. Political. That's what I can tell you. My problem is if there is no political goodwill, nothing will work. Because they always get a way of showing you that it is not important. Okay?
There were I remember during the rollout, there are several issues and criticism, both from teachers who are saying, look, we were not trained on this.
Yes.
Or if there was training on a few teachers within a school, it was rushed.
Yes.
There was also the question of parents then saying, look, this thing I think is being imposed on us. We've not been involved to understand what this is. And I remember the initial stages, and this is to now ask the cost burden. It's a question of the cost burden on parents. Initially, I remember children will go home and you'll see these very funny video clips that parents were filming and sharing on social media, where a child is asked ukuje na nguo ya harusi. So there's going to be a wedding the next day.
Yes.
So the parent has to figure out where do they get a white dress,
and it's
that looks like yes. This is in the evening. Another one was a parent who was being told now. The child was saying tuliambiwa na teacher tupeleke pesa ya gazeti shule.
Correct.
So the parent has to look for newspapers, newspaper cuttings where there is money, like on this page I'm seeing here,
Yes.
where there is money, cut that and then take to school.
Yes.
Then there was another one where students are told kuja na nyanya na kitunguu
Na kuku.
na kuku. So I mean there was so many variations to these things, to the extent that now parents were saying, look, this thing is burdening us. Already the economy is doing so badly.
Correct, yeah.
But you've introduced something to us that is so new. And as much as it is good, but there is a cost implication on our side. We were not prepared for this. And this used to happen every evening, where mzazi anashtuliwa, this needs to kutafuta kuku. And so there was the element of equality. Did it measure schools that are in an urban setting and in a rural setting? There are things that in an urban setting you can never find, or it will be difficult to find. Or if then you move to a rural setting, it will be difficult to find. But how many homes do you find where parents are keeping newspapers? We have the privilege of having newspapers here, but not so many homes you'll find newspaper and then try look for cuttings, then bring. Was the high expense of this, I guess you know where my question is heading.
Yes.
Manila papers, printing, craft items, and all these things, and all these items, were they factored when there was a shift from now, the current, the system that was there before to this new one, financially speaking?
Yes.
Was all that factored in?
I remember when we were collecting the data, the idea was to look at the resources required. But I've also been in schools to talk to parents and talk to learners. Sometimes it's, here is a curriculum. You can interpret it the way you want. For example, let me say my subject is home science. We want them to cook a cake. But now, the teachers, instead of just looking for maybe a cup or two, which they can be helped by the school itself, purchasing maybe a packet of flour, they would ask all the children to bring packets of flour. Can you get? So this was
if a class has 40 students,
yes,
those are 40 kgs.
I heard of schools that were doing that. Yeah. So somehow the teachers were not seeing the implication of what they are interpreting the curriculum and the way they are doing it versus what it was designed to do, because all you needed was maybe a packet bought by the school itself, and you demonstrate, and using the same one packet they can do in groups. Okay, but you see now some teachers were taking advantage of asking the children to all bring, we are making a cake tomorrow, so all of you bring. And maybe there was a need for eating cake in her house. And that's why this department was very key, because that department was the one supposed to follow up on these issues and empower parents, collect some of those stories. Like now you're saying about newspaper. I don't see anywhere the curriculum says you must have the current newspaper. Most schools, as part of their library, they can even collect from anywhere. It's not that you are being asked to do the current newspaper. Maybe it's a newspaper just to get a picture. So anything they can borrow, okay? They can have, some teachers do have them in their homes to bring. You see, I think we needed a lot of empowerment on the people, that is the teachers, the parents, everyone else. But I think this didn't happen, and I think that's where we lost it. We didn't empower because I think things just stopped.
So did it fail?
Yeah, I think
So we are saying CBC has failed.
it's not CBC that has failed, it's the implementation of CBC that has failed.
If I'm supposed to do something, for example, if I had a plan for a design for a building,
Yes.
and I put up the building and then it's not functional and then one day it collapses, didn't it fail?
I would say it's not CBC that failed, it's the implementation. So I would think we would need to look at the issues. And I think even as you're building a house, you don't wait until you build the house. I think there's somebody who comes to look at, you set the first courses, were they set right? And I think this is what I'm saying about that department. Anyway, I'm not...
I think that's a beautiful point. You know
yes,
why?
Yes.
The Ministry of Education has what we call education officers.
Correct.
Do they still exist?
In fact, they need more empowerment
Right?
than anyone else.
For quality assessment and
Yes.
assurance,
Yes.
depending on what is happening
Correct.
under the auspices of the
Yes.
Ministry of Education. Those people exist.
Correct.
So even that department perhaps
Yes.
was not even going to be, even if the
They would
department
use-
was shut down, they would have used the education
Yes.
officers around the country to do this very same thing. So that at the implementation, I remember very clearly Amina Mohammed said, guys, hold on for a minute. Let us make sure that this thing is okay. That is why you pilot something. And we all know the story that happened there. Now, education officers would have been able to take on this role that you're speaking about. But for some reason, we see education officers not carrying out the quality assessment and assurance role anyway.
I think
So why would we expect that to be different than with CBC?
I want to agree with you to a certain extent because it's not just CBC. Even in prior
That's what I'm
curriculum.
saying. They didn't do it anyway.
We
even
needed, and
before.
that's why for me, I'm passionate, whether it was that department or another one set to follow, just like an engineer will follow the building of a structure. Okay? You see, there's an engineer behind, isn't it? To see. I think we needed somebody behind these people to make sure, because I think you've realized with Kenyans, even when we get jobs, all we want is to go have your job, do it from 8 to 10, go home at the end of the month. I don't have to be bothered about these other things, isn't it? So I think somebody needs to follow up, just like we are followed up on issues of corruption. There is EACC. To look at whether this is happening or any other body. I think we needed a body, not necessarily that one that was said, but I'm sure if they would have said this CBC is like this, I think we need a team to follow up on these issues of CBC. And because I remember when that department was said, it was supposed to be talking to the other departments, talk to TSC. I think he mentioned something like saying about the empowerment of teachers.
Yes.
I remember even talking, I was involved, in even crafting how the teachers are empowered, what we should empower the teachers with. But you see now, we are doing it like, okay, this thing has to be done. So we collect, sometimes I'm told, only we can't afford so many teachers, you can only afford to train 4. So what do you think I would do? So the thing is, there needs to be somebody, and maybe somebody passionate enough to know that education is important. And we need, even if it is to follow our education officers, to follow our teachers, to engage our parents, that one has to happen. I'm telling you, even if you change this curriculum to another one tomorrow.
Oh no, it's been called education. It's no longer CBC.
Yeah.
It's now CBE. But
Yes.
we're looking at now why they brought in the education was to make it wholesome.
Which is correct.
Okay,
I think
fine.
that change was quite correct because CBC is just about the curriculum. The whole concept is CBE.
CBE.
It's education.
So we talk about the education. We've looked at the structures that are in place. We've looked at the infrastructure.
Yes.
We've looked at the implementation of the same. But during the transition period,
Yes.
teachers were taken through retooling, pretty much. That's what it was called. And I remember at the time, teachers were supposed to pay for their own retooling. And I know the debate that was there because then again, teachers said, as we went to school, it is the government that has brought this curriculum, take us back to class and retool us. And as we speak, there are teachers who have not gone through retooling, yet they are in charge of implementing CBE, as we call it today. And if you look at the aspirations that you had at the beginning, and the changes that have happened over time and the retooling that hasn't
Yes.
happened over during that period, how is that affecting the entire ecosystem of CBE?
I like to give this example. We have doctors who are trained. Is it in the years after independence, isn't it? They are still in service, isn't it? What happens? They are called for seminars, or they read. You know, sometimes retooling doesn't mean even setting people aside and facilitating them to go to a workshop or something. It's also even going to the ground, and I think that's what more should have happened. In fact, there's nothing different about the methodology that they are using in CBC from what they were using. It's just to remind them that now, with larger groups, with this kind of practical subjects, you need to go back to how you used to do your
So if you are
practicals.
asking them to go back to how they used to do it, why did you need to overhaul the whole system?
Sorry, you know, methodology in teaching, I think, doesn't change. Curriculum changes, the content. It's the content that changes. The way teachers were taught, you know, you go, you meet students. If you have a large group, this is how you deal with them. When you're doing practicals, this is how you do. I think essentially has remained the same. But the problem is, it has remained the same. It's the content that changes. Because in theory, my father never learned anything about IT. And now it is here. We have to. In fact, even I, at this age, I'm trying to learn to deal with some AI things, isn't it? So so what we do is help teachers to refocus. The methodology they were taught during training is the same. And I think sometimes it's just having a conversation with them. This is how you do it better. Okay? If you have large groups, if you have this is how you do it better. Not necessarily come and retrain them on what they needed to do. I don't know whether I'm making myself clear. This retooling was about just organization. Can we be meeting these teachers maybe over their holidays? We talk to them, listen to what the challenges they are having, deal with those challenges, tell them how to deal with them. It was nothing to do with you are taking them through another training. Methodology tends to remain the same. Either you lecture people, either you ask questions, either you do a practical. Those things remain the same. It's just you talk to them, you emphasize to them why it is important to change, to use this methodology with CBC rather than what they were using before. Like I remember during 844, they would cram books, isn't it? Because the idea is I get drilled to pass that exam. But now with CBC, we are not telling you about passing exams. It's about working and we seeing what you are able to do, and then we are focusing you towards what you need to do for yourself.
How long did it take from concept to pilot the CBC program? I know from the 2010 there was the right for every child to have education, but from now, the time we sat down, let's conceptualize this to now pilot, how many years did it take?
You know, I think it was 2016. I like the way we think about it in terms of when it started. You see, when it started, there is a long story behind it. Because we were still the people. You know, it's like you are working with a car, an old model, okay? And you keep improving on that model. Then one time, we now are moving to electrical cars, isn't it? If you look at the car, basically some things are the same, isn't it? It's only that now this is electric. This is an electric car. It's not a petrol. So even before they told us CBC, we were rethinking what needs to change. So it's not a one thing that you sit today and say, no, today we are doing CBC. It's you've been working there. What has been working? What has not been working? What needs to change? And then when you now get the opportunity, because if you need to do massive change, like that, we call now that a reform. You know, we have what we call curriculum review, when you just revise a few things, because I told you nobody is perfect. You review a few things, but there's a reform now when you restructure. Are you getting? But it is advised by many years not just that today we thought CBC and we are overhauling it. It is that we sat many years and kept talking to ourselves and saying, I think this is what we are finding. We are losing so many children. The data that is coming from the ministry, children are being pushed out, blah, 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 blah. So the next opportunity we get, and that I think was allowed 2016, is now we sat. And I think we sat for some years, going through what we were thinking should change, looking at other countries. I remember sitting in,
But
in
you earlier
hotels.
said you're not looking at other countries when you're formulating this.
No, we had to. Because I think you didn't hear me say that when you're doing a curriculum, you can't confine yourself to the years. You don't adopt wholesale. What you do is you learn from
what
them.
other countries have done.
Yeah, actually, let me tell you, before even we did the curriculum, even UNESCO took us to Tanzania for like a 9 months course, so that we could think as Africans together. And we looked at so many things before we could even come and start the process.
So was the plan to roll it out in phases?
Of course, it's in phases.
Okay.
No, not in phases like, okay, it was to go into the system year by year, slowly, so that you. In fact, we drew the organogram for when now KCPE and KCSE would be
Phased out.
Yeah, would be phased out. Yeah.
So what would have been the issue? Because
Yes.
you've mentioned it several times now, that there was a review mechanism that
Yes.
came into place, and whereby you said, okay, with what we have, we see that maybe there's an issue here, an issue here. We wanted
Yes.
parents to be more involved. And if we look at the things that are now being done with CBC, those used to be done with 844.
Yes.
People did home economics, people
Correct.
did carpentry, people did apprenticeship where they learned how to build things out of woodwork. All of those things happened,
Correct.
whereby there was discussion around subject matter. Would it be fair to say that perhaps what needed to happen was a robust review of the current curriculum without an overhaul?
I think at some point you can't avoid the overhaul, just like you overhaul even appliances and equipment. I think sometimes you can't, but it is informed by what happens. Actually, like you're saying, this CBE, actually it's more like the 844 that was not even implemented. You see, now what happened is, I remember when 844 was born, it was supposed to be more practical, isn't it? But then somehow, because of exams, we lost it. So we said still, these practicals are very, very important. And what we can do now is reduce the number of exams to make it possible for us now to identify, not just to do the practical, but to be able to identify what is this child good at and give him the opportunity to nurture that he's good at or she's good at, okay? Rather than now that all of us have to do this subject or I went through a system where I remember I did sciences and I was sort of forced into sciences because what they did was go and count the marks and then they said the top 40 students will do science. Nobody asked me whether I wanted the science. But in CBC, the only the big difference is we want it now to make sure that children are not lost, that whatever they are gifted in goes with them until the highest.
But the only challenge is it's introduced in chaos. Now, let me give you an example of global lessons. Allow me to
chaos.
just go into... Yes, it's in
Yes.
chaos because from teachers to parents to learners.
To publishers.
It's a whole it's confusion. Now, I'll give you an
Now.
example of global lessons.
Now that I'm not there.
Yes. Now, so let's look at some successful. I'll just give like 2 or 3
Correct,
examples
correct.
of how they've done differently because you
Yes.
said UNESCO was rolled in. You're looking at other countries. What have they done? In Finland, how they changed the system was first teacher empowerment. So they took decades from the 70s to the 90s. And the reform was so gradual to the extent that there was heavy investment in teacher training first. And the minimum at that time for teachers was a master's degree. That was the minimum. They started with teachers, focus on teachers.
Good.
Then teachers were given autonomy to innovate in classrooms.
Correct.
Then the focus now went to equality. Same quality education for rural and urban learners. make it a level playing field. Now, when Singapore, which we love as a country, to give an example of, they shifted from rote learning and to skills-based education from the 1980s, what CBC is trying to achieve.
Yes.
But the reforms there were faced, and this is how they faced. They started small, with very strong political will and monitoring. Then there was the second phase, heavy investment in ICT, skills in training, and teacher development. Hatujafikia learners bado. Then the industry linkages, education then was tied to the economy and the realities of the job market, that is Singapore. We go to Rwanda just here.
Yes.
Rwanda rolled out their competence-based curriculum in 2015, but also in stages. Lower primary first, then they looked for partners from NGOs and international agencies to fund teacher training and materials. The focus here is from the teacher, empower the teacher, create infrastructure. We go to South Korea. The education reforms were tied to economic development plans. Again, heavy investment in infrastructure and universal access. So the graduate curriculum was faced in such a way that first, create infrastructure, put everything in place, empower the teachers before you start engaging parents and the learners. Why didn't we do that?
Good. I think you've just answered yourself. You are talking of heavy investment, good political will, isn't it? I think when you're mentioning all those countries, you can see they are focused on what they want to do. I think that's all that lacked in this country. Nothing else. Nothing else.
So there was no focus?
Yes.
Okay.
So we were creating a system.
I mean, we are saying, yes, the curriculum should change, but nobody is looking at what are the resources, what do we need to do? We are not following up on those issues. In fact, the facing, CBC is not even yet into the whole system. You know, you can, it can also be like piloting. You see, you entered CBC at grade 1, you know, PP1. Year by year, we are not even yet through, isn't it? Yeah, so I think what you're talking about, if we could get that goodwill from those countries, a country
from
like
here,
Finland,
in this country,
yes,
not from outside, the goodwill from here.
Yes, from here.
Yeah,
that's what we need, and focus on using appropriate personnel and doing the rightful work to support that, and would also be there like those countries. The only difference is, for example, in Finland, the teacher ratio, you go to those countries, you can find a teacher can even help one child. Here we have a different, and those are the challenges I would have been looking at. What do we need to do now when the teacher ratio is like this? I think we've been talking of employing teachers. We haven't employed, we have employed interns. So I think
there's still a lot to do.
It's a lot
That's
of support
for sure.
that's required.
And the jury is still out on whether this curriculum is actually working or not. But we want to thank you very much for joining us in this conversation. Olive Mbuthia is a former Deputy Director of KICD and an education consultant, and wraps up our conversation this morning at 10:03. Have a wonderful day. Good morning.
This is The Situation Room, the only way